Misfit Gardening. Happy Sunday. I've been trying to do some design work for my front yard piece, and this is like a draft of one of many different designs that I'm going to be doing. And I actually took some inspiration from a passion flower, so how the stamen and the anthers and things look within a passion flower kind of help design some pathways into the plot. So these are all paths, and my idea was kind of doing like a almost like a keyhole kind of garden design. So all of these spaces, like all the white spaces, will be planted up with plants, whilst everything that's right by the sidewalk and in kind of dog pee territory will be river rock and some boulders to kind of add a bit of interest. So I obviously live in a suburban area, and I need to make sure that whatever I'm designing is going to look nice. It's not going to have any problems with, you know, HOAs or city ordinance, things like that. But also it needs to be something that doesn't look too out there. And I say that because where I live, it's quite a conservative area. I don't want, you know, something that's going to impede selling my house, or people are gonna kind of take a look at it and think, oh, that looks terrible, I'm gonna have to spend a lot of money fixing that. You know, lawns and things like that are very traditional. I really admire the people who go whole hog and grow, you know, stuff right out in the front garden, like vegetables and things, but that's not going to work for where I live. So I decided that this space is purely going to be for kind of flowers and those kind of plants that are going to bring in bees, birds, you know, beneficial insects, all that kind of stuff. So that's exactly what I'm wanting to do with this space. You know, I could put in some plants and things, you know, to kind of forage on, but with it being so close to like the driveway where we're going to be parking, the road, neighbours, all that good stuff, that's not really going to work for me. So, like I said, this is one design of many. I've got some other ideas for things. So, you know, I'm able to play about on paper with what, you know, what's going to work, and some spacing and things like that. Now, I just pop that to one side. Now, I've been kind of working on a list, and if I just move the camera down, you'll be able to see, if you can read my terrible handwriting. Oh, come on, zoom, there we go. So I've been kind of brainstorming just, you know, all the kind of plants that I really like, things that will grow in the area, stuff that I've never grown before but I would really like to, things like trumpet vine, for example. I've never grown that before, but I see a lot of it here. It's great for bees, it's great for hummingbirds. You know, and I'm also looking at different types of trees. So I've got maybe a witch hazel or a robe locust, and somewhere in here I wrote sumac, you know, some things that would provide you know, flowers as well as leaves and things that, you know, are going to be useful for the area. So yeah, there's lots of different plants on here, from, you know, delphiniums and hebes to wormwood, lily of the valley, tulips, daffodils, violets, Mexican orange blossom, philadelphus, dicentra, broom, gladioli, you know, nymphovia, red hot pokers, I know them as, you know, lots and lots of things that are going to produce flowers. And what I'm really looking for is, I'm looking for things that are going to be in flower throughout the season. Now, I know I'm not going to get things that are going to be, you know, flowering in the dead of winter, but I'd like to have, you know, quite a wide variety of plants that are available. So all I did was I just kind of brain dumped everything that I could think of onto, you know, a piece of paper. And then I started going through and actually figuring out, you know, what plants am I really going to be putting down there. So usually in permaculture, you're wanting to stack things. So, you know, whether it's stacking in height, so you've got, you know, the tall trees, then you've got smaller trees, then you've got shrubs, then you've got, you know, plants, and then you've got mulching plants and like a whole heap of different things. But another way to look at it is stacking functions as well. So, you know, let's take the trees for example. You know, the road locust it's a nitrogen fixing plant. It produces mulch. It's got very beautiful bee friendly flowers, and it provides a dappled shade. It also grows here quite readily. It's a low water tree, which makes it great for the area that I have. So there's lots of things that that plant is providing. Sumac, for example, I could only really think that it provided brilliant foliage and it was fruiting. I couldn't really think of other things, you know, other than it provides mulch and things as well. I wasn't able to come up with lots of other ideas for it, so I crossed it off because I could only think of maybe 3 things. Hazel, so you've got early spring flowers, it mulches, it buffers wind because they grow actually quite well in windswept areas, bee-friendly flowers, and produces nuts. Great! Witch hazel is actually a late season flowering, also provides mulch and bee friendly flowers, and obviously witch hazel is good as an astringent. You know, it's good if you've got bruising, acne, all that kind of stuff as well. So multiple functions again. I've started writing down some of the other things as well. So I've got iris, juniper, black eye Susan, and hyacinth. And I'm going to be going through the same thing, and I'm trying to think of what do these plants provide. And for some things, you know, they're not going to make the cut. They're not going to stay. Junipers, let's take that as an example. You know, if you get the right variety, they will make berries that can be used as, you know, juniper berries and seasonings and stuff like that when they're dried. But other than that, I can't really think of what it's going to do. It doesn't drop its needles particularly. It's not going to provide a mulch. So that might not be something that I plant unless I really, really want to. Irises are one of my favourite flowers. They provide beautiful blooms. They're going to make things look nice. They're going to provide forage for bees, and you can get different irises, you know, that all bloom at different stages. They grow in different soil types, so there's lots that are available there. And but again, it's really only bee forage or that it looks pretty. So I'm really struggling to be able to put that plant in there as much as I love them. Same with some of the bulbs that we have. You know, things that are going to spread and, you know, kind of settle themselves. So things like daffodils. Daffodils spread really easily and, you know, look really cheerful first thing in early March. So they were a great plant to have. You know, they provide lots of nectar for things like bumblebees, mason bees, as well as honeybees. So they could be something that grows really well. But I mean, I've got more than, I guess easily more than 40 plants here that I'm going to go through and take a look at really what am I going to be growing. Some other things that you can think about when you're planning what plants that you're going to be putting into the space are things like how easy are they to propagate? Is it something that you can propagate from cuttings? Is it something that you can divide? Is it something that you're just going to save seed from? Because obviously, if you're able to propagate your plants, one, you know, it's free plants essentially, so you can fill up more of your garden, but you could also use them as a source of income potentially as well. So if you wanted to set up like a mini nursery and start selling, you know, plants that you've grown on things like, you know, local classifieds, Craigslist, all that kind of stuff. You know, that's something to think about. And lots of these plants grow actually quite easily from cuttings that are taken. You know, things like, excuse me, Philadelphus and Mexican mock orange. I've grown them quite successfully from cuttings before. Other plants, you know, I've got things like Californian poppies, foxgloves, penstemons, you know, all these things are pretty good at self-seeding and spreading. So, you know, if I go back to my drawing here, you know, we've got an area here that's going to be right next to the driveway. I'm not necessarily going to want to put plants right up against where the driveway is going to be that aren't pretty robust. Ideally, it needs to be something that's kind of small, because in winter we're going to be shoveling snow off that area and it's got to go somewhere. So it's going to go on this strip here. So, you know, potentially maybe some rock's going to go on here, so we're not going to impact any plants that are growing, because the snow is probably going to have, you know, de-icer on it, it's going to have salt on it, you know, it's not going to be great. So I want fairly robust plants that are going to be going into here. And if you remember from me talking about in some of my other videos with the observations, you know, here's very, you know, warm, it gets quite hot over here, so we want sort of plants that are able to cope with a lot more heat, but also we want taller plants going in here as well to kind of provide some privacy from the neighbours. And also we don't just kind of want things to be, you know, all sort of one level and then it all of a sudden goes to really tall sunflowers or something, for example. You know, you kind of, you want something that's going to move your eye through the design and through you know, the plants that you're putting in here. You know, you don't necessarily want straight lines particularly, that's very boring. You know, nice kind of meandering, different heights within the design will also kind of help break things up and make it look nice for people. So, you know, I'm kind of wanting, you know, and this is me just kind of brain dumping again, but, you know, maybe kind of starting out, you know, near the rocks and things. You know, we've got sort of, close by to the paths, you have things like your spring flowering bulbs and your mulching plants that then move on to some of the bigger shrubs. So let's say maybe we've got some roses in there, or lavenders, you know, lupins, you know, things like that. And then you're moving into, you know, slightly bigger plants like delphiniums or tamaricks and, you know, elderflower or chrysanthemums. And, you know, you're sort of slowly stacking things up, and then maybe you get the bush honeysuckles, and then maybe we move on to, you know, we've got like a couple of trees dotted into here. So, you know, let's say we've got some hazels that are growing on this side to buffer the prevailing winds that come in. And maybe over here we've got the you know, robe locust coming in. And then up the robe locust we've got maybe jasmine growing, or honeysuckle, or maybe we just have the vines growing up onto, you know, bamboo stake and teepees to have some interest. So there's lots of things that we can do with this space. Once I get a final list of this is what plants are going to be going into there, because this is what they're going to be providing. So that's a little bit more on what I'm doing for my permaculture design. Until next time, have a great weekend and have a great week. I'm Emma from Misfit Gardening. Bye bye.